The clearing had been transformed into an impromptu diplomatic meeting ground. Alien representatives sat on folding chairs that the news crews had brought, while human officials arrived by helicopter to join the discussions. Lisa found herself at the center of it all, still holding her grandfather's walking stick. Commander Zethkar had been given medical attention by his own people. Without his armor, he looked less threatening and more like someone Lisa could actually talk to. The alien medics had cleaned his wounds and given him a simple gray robe to wear. "You could have killed me," he said to Lisa during a quiet moment between the formal talks. "When you broke open my armor, you could have used your blade to finish me. Why didn't you?" Lisa considered the question. "Because killing you wouldn't have proven anything except that humans are good at killing. We wanted to prove we're good at surviving." The alien nodded slowly. "My people have forgotten that distinction. We have been conquerors for so long that we stopped thinking about what comes after conquest." The formal negotiations began with a Galactic Federation representative named Ambassador Krell. He was from a species that looked like walking lizards, and he spoke in a dry, professional tone. "The terms of the challenge were clear," Krell announced. "Commander Zethkar was defeated, so humanity has earned the right to negotiate rather than face immediate subjugation. However, the Federation's position remains that Earth's resources would be better managed by more advanced civilizations." Lisa stood up from her chair. She was still wearing her dirty military uniform, and she looked very small next to the various aliens. But her voice carried clearly across the clearing. "With respect, Ambassador, I think you're missing the point. This fight wasn't about who gets to manage Earth's resources. It was about whether humans deserve to be treated as equals." She gestured to the damaged alien equipment scattered around the clearing. "Your advanced technology couldn't defeat one human with basic tools and training. Maybe it's time to reconsider who's really more advanced." An alien from a species that looked like walking trees spoke up. "One victory does not prove general superiority. This was merely an unusual circumstance." "Was it?" Lisa asked. She walked over to Zethkar's broken armor and picked up a piece of the chest plate. "Let me tell you what I see when I look at this. I see a civilization that has forgotten how to adapt." She held up the armor piece for everyone to see. "This is beautifully made. The technology is amazing, but it has a fatal flaw. It was designed by people who never expected to face an opponent who wouldn't play by their rules." Lisa set the armor down and picked up her walking stick again. "This was made by my grandfather with hand tools and 60 years of experience. It doesn't need power cells or maintenance schedules. It won't break down in bad weather or malfunction if you hit it too hard. It's simple, reliable, and effective." She looked around at the assembled aliens. "That's what humans are like. We adapt to whatever situation we're in. We make do with what we have. We find ways to win even when the odds are against us." Ambassador Krell made a dismissive gesture. "Primitive stubbornness is not the same as true advancement." "Then let me ask you something," Lisa said. "How many of your species can survive in the wilderness without technology? How many can fight effectively if their weapons fail? How many can solve problems using nothing but their minds and basic tools?" The alien representatives looked uncomfortable. Lisa pressed her advantage. "I've been watching your people for days now. You can't even eat food unless it comes from a package. You stay inside when it rains. You depend completely on your machines for everything." She walked closer to the diplomatic table. "What happens when those machines break down? What happens when you face a problem your computers can't solve? What happens when you meet someone who fights differently than you expect?" Commander Zethkar spoke up. "She is correct. My people have become dependent. We have forgotten the old ways in our pursuit of technological supremacy. Lisa nodded to him gratefully. I'm not saying technology is bad. Humans use technology too. But we don't let it replace our ability to think and adapt. We use it as a tool, not as a crutch. An alien that looked like a giant insect clicked its mandibles together. Even if we accept your argument, one world cannot change galactic policy. The Federation represents thousands of civilizations. Then maybe it's time for the Federation to learn something new, Lisa said. Humans have spent their entire history facing impossible challenges and finding ways to overcome them. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have wiped out species that depended only on technology. She looked directly at Ambassador Krell. We're not asking to rule the galaxy. We're asking for the chance to show you what we can do as partners instead of subjects. The negotiations continued for hours. Lisa found herself explaining human history and culture to beings from across the galaxy. She talked about human resilience, creativity, and determination. She explained how humans had always been explorers and inventors, constantly pushing boundaries and finding new solutions to old problems. Some of the aliens remained skeptical, but others seemed genuinely interested. A few even asked specific questions about human fighting techniques and survival skills. As the day wore on, a consensus began to emerge. The Galactic Federation would grant Earth provisional membership status. Humanity would be allowed to govern itself and develop its own technology, but would also be expected to contribute to galactic civilization. What kind of contribution did you have in mind? Asked the human Secretary of State, who had arrived with the latest wave of officials. Ambassador Krell consulted his electronic tablet. Military service primarily. The Federation faces threats from several hostile species. Human adaptability and combat effectiveness could be valuable assets. Lisa felt a surge of pride. Humans were being invited to join galactic civilization, not as servants or resources, but as warriors and protectors. But she also felt a responsibility to make sure this partnership worked properly. We'll need to do this gradually, she said. Humans will want to understand what we're getting into before we commit to anything major. Commander Zethkar stood up, still moving carefully from his injuries. I request permission to remain on Earth as a military liaison. I believe I have much to learn from human fighting methods. Lisa smiled at him. I'd be happy to teach you. But first you might want to try camping in the woods for a week, without any technology. The alien commander actually laughed at that. I accept your challenge. As the formal talks wound down, Lisa found herself standing at the edge of the clearing, looking up at the stars. Tomorrow everything would be different. Humanity would no longer be alone in the universe. Amy Rodriguez walked up beside her. So what happens now, Sergeant? Lisa hefted her grandfather's walking stick. Now we get back to work. The galaxy is a big place, and humans have a lot to learn. But we also have a lot to teach. She thought about her grandfather, who had always told her that the best way to earn respect was to prove yourself when it mattered most. Today, humanity had proven itself to an entire galaxy. Think they'll really treat us as equals? Amy asked. Lisa smiled. They will now. We showed them that advanced technology doesn't make you superior. What makes you superior is never giving up, no matter how primitive your weapons are. Above them, alien ships began departing for distant worlds, carrying news of humanity's unexpected victory. But several ships remained, their crews eager to learn more about these surprising humans. Lisa looked at her walking stick one more time, then started walking back toward the base camp. There was work to do. Humanity had just taken its first step onto the galactic stage, and Lisa Morgan, former ranch girl turned interstellar diplomat, was going to make sure they made a good impression. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun, and it had started with a woman, a wooden stick, and the simple truth that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. In the distance, she could hear reporters already working on their stories. Tomorrow, the whole world would know that humanity's place in the galaxy had been secured not by advanced weapons or superior technology, but by the timeless virtues of courage, determination, and the refusal to accept defeat. Her grandfather would have been proud. With most of his armor systems damaged, Commander Zethkar looked less like an invincible alien warrior and more like a very large, very angry creature in a broken metal suit. The smooth black armor now had scorch marks and sparking holes. Several panels hung loose and cooling fluid dripped from damaged vents, but he was still dangerous. Even without his energy weapons, Zethkar was 7 feet tall and probably weighed 300 pounds. His natural strength was greater than any human's. Lisa circled him carefully, her walking stick ready. She had learned to read his movements. Over the past few minutes, the alien telegraphed his attacks, relying on brute force instead of strategy. His species had probably used superior technology for so long that they had forgotten how to fight with just their bodies. "You think you have won, primitive?" Zethkar growled. "I am Vorthon. We conquered 12 worlds before your species learned to make fire." He lunged at Lisa with his clawed hands. She sidestepped and struck his knee joint with her stick. The armor there was already cracked from earlier hits, and now it gave way completely. Zethkar stumbled and nearly fell. "Conquering with fancy weapons isn't the same as being a warrior," Lisa replied. She spun around and hit the back of his other knee. "My grandfather fought in 3 wars and never lost a single battle. Want to know his secret?" Zethkar turned to face her, favoring his damaged leg. What secret could a primitive creature possess? Lisa smiled. He never fought fair. She threw a handful of dirt into the alien's cracked visor, temporarily blinding him. While he clawed at his helmet trying to clear his vision, Lisa attacked his armor's remaining weak points. Her walking stick struck like a snake. She hit power couplings, sensor arrays, and joint servos with surgical precision. Each blow was calculated to cause maximum damage to his equipment while avoiding his natural weapons. The watching crowd had grown larger. More helicopters had arrived with additional news crews and military observers. Lisa could hear reporters describing the action to their audiences. "The Marine is systematically dismantling the alien's technological advantages," one commentator said. "She's not trying to overpower him, she's outsmarting him." But Lisa wasn't paying attention to the cameras or the crowd. She was focused entirely on her opponent. Zethkar had finally cleared his visor and was looking around for her. She was behind him, using a large tree for cover. The alien's helmet limited his peripheral vision, another weakness she had noted. Lisa waited until he turned away, then struck, the main power coupling on his back again. This time, the hit caused a cascade failure. Lights went out all over his armor, and the mechanical assistance systems shut down. Suddenly, Zethkar was carrying 300 pounds of dead weight instead of powered battle armor. "What have you done?" he demanded, trying to activate his systems. "I've leveled the playing field," Lisa said. She stepped out from behind the tree, no longer hiding. "Now let's see how good you really are." Zethkar tried to remove his helmet, but the release mechanisms were electronic and no longer. working. He was trapped inside his own armor, unable to see clearly or move freely. Lisa pressed her advantage. She used her walking stick like a staff, striking high and low in rapid combinations. The ironwood was harder than the alien metal, and each blow left dents and cracks. More importantly, she was targeting the armor's structural weak points, the joints where different pieces connected, the hinges and pivots that allowed movement. She was turning Zethkar's protection into a prison. The alien commander tried to grab her, but his movements were slow and clumsy now. Lisa danced around him, always staying just out of reach. When he swung his massive fists, she wasn't there. When he tried to kick her, she had already moved to his blind spot. "Stand still and fight!" Zethkar roared in frustration. "Why would I do that?" Lisa replied, striking another joint in his armor. "You wouldn't stand still if you were smart enough to move like I do." This seemed to enrage the alien even more. He charged at her like a wounded bull, arms outstretched to crush her against a tree. Lisa waited until the last second, then dropped to the ground and swept her walking stick across his ankles. Already off balance from his damaged armor, Zethkar crashed to the ground with a tremendous thud. The impact loosened several more armor plates. Lisa could see that the alien was breathing hard inside his helmet. The broken cooling systems weren't working, and he was overheating in the metal suit. "Give up," Lisa offered. "You're beaten." Zethkar struggled to get back to his feet, but the heavy armor made it difficult. "Never. I will not be defeated by a primitive creature." "Then you'll learn the hard way," Lisa said. She began working on the armor systematically, like a mechanic taking apart an engine. Her combat knife proved useful for cutting cables and prying open damaged panels. Her walking stick was perfect for applying leverage to bend metal and break connections. The other aliens watching the fight had gone completely silent. Several of them were making frantic calls on their communication devices. Lisa guessed they were asking for instructions from their superiors. One alien, wearing gold insignia that probably marked him as an officer, stepped forward. "Human," he called out, "you have proven your point. Perhaps we can discuss terms." Lisa paused in her work. "I'm not done yet." Zethkar challenged humanity to single combat. "The fight ends when one of us can't continue." She looked down at the alien commander who was still struggling inside his broken armor. "What do you say, Commander? Ready to surrender?" "I will die before I surrender to a primitive," Zethkar gasped. Lisa nodded. "I respect that. But you don't have to die. You just have to admit that humans aren't as primitive as you thought." She placed her walking stick across his helmet's visor like a lever. With careful pressure, she could crack the remaining transparent material. If she wanted to, she could blind him completely or even break through to injure him directly. But Lisa didn't want to kill the alien commander. She wanted to make a point. "Here's what's going to happen," she said loudly, making sure all the watching aliens could hear her. "I'm going to show you exactly how primitive humans really are." She began working on Zethkar's armor with methodical precision. Not to hurt him, but to free him from the metal prison he was trapped inside. Her knife cut through the jammed release mechanisms. Her walking stick provided leverage to bend open twisted plates. It took almost 10 minutes, but finally she managed to crack open the alien's chest plate. Cool air rushed in, and Zethkar gasped with relief. "There," Lisa said, stepping back. "A primitive human just saved your life." She held up her grandfather's walking stick and her combat knife. "These are the most advanced weapons I used. A piece of carved wood and a steel blade. No computers, no energy weapons, no powered armor." The watching aliens stared at her in amazement. Their supposedly superior champion lay helpless on the ground, defeated by tools that humans had been using for thousands of years. "We're not primitive," Lisa continued. "We're adaptable, we're resourceful, and we never give up, no matter how hopeless things look." She walked over to Commander Zeth Carr and extended her hand to help him up. The alien looked at her for a long moment, then accepted her assistance. Standing face to face with his armor removed, Zeth Carr looked almost human. His skin was gray and his features were different, but Lisa could see intelligence in his eyes. And something else. Respect. "You fought with honor," he said quietly. "I underestimated your species." Lisa nodded. Most people do. That's usually their first mistake. The alien commander turned to face the crowd of observers. In a voice that carried across the clearing, he made his announcement. "The human has defeated me in fair combat. The Vorthan Empire will honor the terms of the challenge." A cheer went up from the human spectators. Camera crews rushed forward to get interviews. Military officials began making phone calls to their superiors, but Lisa wasn't done yet. She had won the fight, but now came the harder part. She had to make sure this victory meant something for all of humanity. She looked at the assembled aliens, representatives from dozens of different worlds. They were seeing humans in a new light, but old prejudices died hard. "We need to talk," she told them, "all of us, because this fight was just the beginning." The morning of the challenge, news crews arrived in helicopters and set up cameras around the clearing. Lisa could see reporters speaking into microphones, telling the world about the small human woman who would fight an alien commander with nothing but a wooden stick. Commander Zeth Carr seemed amused by all the attention. He stood in the center of the clearing, his black armor gleaming in the sunlight. Other aliens had arrived to watch the fight. Lisa counted at least 20 different species, all wearing fancy uniforms and making notes on electronic devices. "So this is humanity's champion?" Zeth Carr said through his translator. His voice boomed across the clearing. "A small female with primitive weapons?" Lisa walked into the arena space they had marked off. She wore her military uniform and boots, but no armor. Her grandfather's walking stick felt comfortable in her hands. The ironwood was smooth from years of use, and the carved patterns gave her fingers a good grip. "I am Staff Sergeant Lisa Morgan, United States Marine Corps," she announced, "and I'm here to show you what humans can do." The alien commander laughed, a harsh sound that made several humans in the crowd step back. "You think that piece of wood can defeat Vorthon battle technology?" He activated his energy sword. The blade was 3 feet long and glowed with blue fire. Lisa could feel the heat from 20 feet away. Then he turned on his energy shield, and a shimmering barrier appeared around his arm. "I have fought warriors from a dozen worlds," Zeth Carr continued. "I have defeated creatures with claws that can cut through steel and monsters that breathe acid. You are nothing but a primitive child with a stick." The other aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Lisa heard one of them speaking in English to a reporter. "This will be over in seconds. Humans are even weaker than we thought." But Lisa wasn't listening to the insults. She was studying her opponent. The alien commander was big and strong, but she had been watching him for days. She knew how he moved, how he fought, and most importantly, how he thought. Zeth Carr raised his energy sword and began walking toward her. The weapon hummed and crackled with power. Lisa could see the confidence in his movements. He expected this to be easy. Lisa started moving too, but not toward him. She circled to the left, staying light on her feet. The ground was uneven here, with rocks and fallen branches scattered around. Lisa knew every inch of this terrain. Zethkar was seeing it for the first time. "Stand still and face me, coward," the alien demanded. He swung his energy sword in a wide arc, trying to cut Lisa in half, but Lisa wasn't there anymore. She had ducked low and rolled to the side. The energy blade passed over her head, close enough to singe her hair. She came up near a large boulder and used it for cover. Zethkar followed, his heavy boots making the ground shake. Lisa waited until he was close, then she struck. Her walking stick jabbed out like a spear, hitting one of the cooling vents on his armor. The alien staggered slightly. It wasn't enough to hurt him, but Lisa wasn't trying to hurt him yet. She was gathering information. The vent made a small crackling sound when she hit it. That was useful to know. "You cannot hide forever, primitive," Zethkar snarled. He fired, his energy weapon at the boulder. The rock exploded in a shower of dust and fragments. Lisa was already gone, moving to her next position. She had learned something else important. The energy weapon was powerful, but it took a few seconds to recharge between shots, and firing it made his armor's power systems work harder. The fight continued like this for several minutes. Zethkar would attack with brutal force, and Lisa would dodge and strike back at weak points. She hit cooling vents, joint servos, and sensor arrays. Each hit was small, but they added up. The watching aliens began to look concerned. This wasn't going the way they had expected. The human should have been dead by now, but instead she was making their champion look clumsy and slow. Lisa could hear the reporters narrating the fight for their cameras. "The Marine is using hit-and-run tactics, avoiding direct confrontation with the alien's superior firepower." What they didn't understand was that Lisa wasn't running away. She was studying. Every exchange taught her more about the alien's armor and weapons. She was learning which hits caused sparks, which ones made warning lights flash, and which ones made Zethkar pause to check his systems. "Fight me properly!" the alien commander roared. He was getting frustrated, and frustrated opponents made mistakes. Lisa decided it was time to test something she had noticed. She stepped out from behind a tree and stood in the open, apparently defenseless. Zethkar smiled and raised his energy sword for a killing blow. The weapon came down with tremendous force, aimed at Lisa's head, but Lisa wasn't there when it arrived. She had stepped slightly to the side and used her walking stick to deflect the blade's path. The energy sword hit the ground and sent up a shower of sparks. More importantly, the impact overloaded something in the weapon's systems. Warning lights began flashing on Zethkar's armor. The energy sword flickered and went out. "Impossible," the alien muttered, trying to restart his weapon. Lisa didn't give him time. She spun her walking stick like a staff and struck 3 rapid blows. One hit cracked his helmet's visor. Another damaged a power coupling on his chest. Plate. The third struck his weapon arm, causing his grip to loosen. Zethkar stumbled backward, his energy sword falling to the ground. For the first time since the fight began, he looked uncertain. The crowd of aliens was completely silent now. Several of them were speaking urgently into communication devices. Lisa guessed they were reporting to their superiors that the fight wasn't going as planned. "Your turn to be afraid," Lisa said quietly, advancing on the alien commander. Zethkar still had his energy shield and his natural strength, but Lisa could see that his armor was running hot. The cooling systems she had been hitting were struggling to keep up. Sweat was visible through his cracked visor. He swung his shield arm at her like a club. Lisa caught the blow on her walking stick and used the alien's own momentum to redirect his attack. Zethkar spun around, off balance, and Lisa struck again. This time she hit the main power coupling on his back. Sparks flew, and half the lights on his armor went dark. The alien commander was no longer laughing. He was breathing hard and moving more slowly. His armor, which had seemed like an advantage, was becoming a burden. All that extra weight and bulk were tiring him out. Lisa felt a surge of confidence. Her grandfather had been right. Technology, without wisdom, was just expensive equipment waiting to be beaten by someone who understood the basics of combat. "What's wrong, Commander?" she called out. "I thought this was going to be easy." Zethkar snarled and charged at her, trying to use his size and remaining strength to overwhelm her. But Lisa was ready for that too. She planted her walking stick in the ground and used it like a pole vault, launching herself up and over the charging alien. As she flew over his head, she struck down with her combat knife, cutting several important-looking cables on his armor. Zethkar crashed into a tree, and more of his systems failed. His remaining energy shield flickered and died. Now they were fighting on more equal terms. The alien was still bigger and stronger, but he no longer had his technological advantages. And Lisa was just getting started. She had spent her whole life preparing for this moment, even if she hadn't known it. Every hour of military training, every lesson from her grandfather, every day spent working on the ranch had made her ready for this fight. The watching aliens were no longer making sounds of amusement. They were seeing something they hadn't expected. A primitive human was defeating their advanced champion using nothing but skill, determination, and a piece of carved wood. Lisa smiled and raised her walking stick. The real fight was just beginning. For 3 days, Lisa and her team watched the aliens from their hiding spots in the forest. The creatures had set up a base camp in the clearing. More ships had arrived, bringing supplies and more soldiers. Lisa learned their daily routines. The aliens were organized and disciplined, but they had weaknesses. They relied completely on their technology. When it rained on the second day, they stayed inside their ships instead of adapting like humans would. They ate food from packages instead of finding fresh water or hunting for meat. "They're soft," Lisa told her team during one of their quiet meetings. "All that fancy equipment has made them lazy." Bobby Chen had been sketching the alien weapons and armor in a notebook. "Look at this," he said, showing his drawings. "Their guns need to recharge after every few shots. And their armor has cooling vents on the back." Amy Rodriguez nodded. "I've been watching how they move. The armor makes them strong, but it also makes them slow. And they can't turn their heads very well with those helmets on." Lisa was proud of her soldiers. They were thinking like warriors instead of just being scared. On the third night, they heard explosions in the distance. The aliens were attacking human cities and military bases. Lisa tried not to think about her family back in Montana. She had to focus on what she could control. The next morning, Commander Zethkar seemed angry. He paced around the clearing, shouting at his soldiers in their alien language. Then he activated his translator again. "The humans continue to resist," he announced. "They hide in their cities like cowards and refuse to accept their fate. This is unacceptable." Another alien, smaller than Zethkar but wearing similar armor, approached the commander. They talked in low voices for several minutes. Lisa wished she could understand their real language. Finally, Zethkar raised his voice again. "I grow tired of this primitive species and their foolish pride. I will make them an offer they cannot refuse." He pointed his weapon at the sky and fired several energy bolts. The bright flashes could probably be seen for miles. It was a signal. "Humans," Zethkar called out. "I know you can hear me. Your governments have been contacted. I offer your species a chance to prove you are worthy of survival." Lisa felt her heart speed up. This sounded important. "I challenge any human warrior to face me in single combat," the commander continued. "If your champion can defeat me, the Vorthen Empire will treat with your species as equals. You may negotiate the terms of your surrender instead of facing complete destruction." He gestured to his armor and weapons. "But if your champion fails, as they surely will, then humanity will submit without further resistance. You have one day to choose your fighter." The aliens went back to their normal routine, but Lisa could feel the excitement in the air. This was the chance she had been waiting for. That afternoon, Jake Collins returned from a scouting mission with news. He had found a spot where human radio signals were still working. Military frequencies were buzzing with activity. "The whole world knows about the challenge," Jake reported. "Every government is arguing about who should fight. Some want to send special forces soldiers. Others think we should send our best boxers or martial artists." Lisa stood up and began pacing. She had been thinking about this all day. "What do you think our chances are?" she asked her team, "against that armor and those weapons?" Danny Wilson shook his head. "Not good. That alien is 7 feet tall and probably stronger than any human. Plus, he's got energy shields and that sword thing," Pete added. "I saw him practicing with it yesterday. Cut through a rock like it was butter." Amy looked thoughtful. "But we've been watching him for days. We know how he moves, how he fights. That has to count for something." Lisa nodded. "What if the fighter didn't use modern weapons? What if they went old school?" Bobby frowned. "What do you mean?" Lisa held up her grandfather's walking stick. "I mean, what if someone challenged him with traditional weapons? Showed these aliens that humans don't need fancy technology to be dangerous?" The team stared at her. Jake was the first to understand. "You want to fight him yourself?" "I've been thinking about it," Lisa admitted. "Look, whoever they send from the military is going to try to match his technology with our technology. But we've seen that their stuff is better than ours. So why play their game?" She pointed toward the alien camp. "Zethkar thinks humans are primitive. He thinks our simple weapons and tools make us weak. What if we proved him wrong?" Amy shook her head. "Lisa, he's twice your size. And that armor—" "The armor has weaknesses," Lisa interrupted. "We've all seen them. Those cooling vents, the joint servos, the power cables. And he's been living soft for who knows how long. I grew up on a ranch. I've been training in these mountains since I was a kid." She stood up and started demonstrating with her stick. "My grandfather taught me how to fight with traditional weapons. Not for sport, but for real. How to use leverage instead of strength. How to turn an opponent's size against them." Danny looked skeptical. "It's suicide, Sergeant." "Maybe," Lisa said. "But what's the alternative? We let some general from Washington fight a battle he can't win? Or we try something these aliens won't expect?" Lisa had made up her mind, but she needed to get word to the military command. That night, she sent Jake and Bobby to the radio location with a message. She volunteered to represent humanity in the challenge. The response came back quickly. "Are you insane? You're just a staff sergeant with a stick." But Lisa had thought about this too. She sent back a detailed report of everything they had observed about the aliens, their weaknesses, their routines, their overconfidence. She explained her strategy and why she thought it could work. Hours passed. Lisa imagined generals and politicians arguing in meeting rooms around the world. Everyone probably thought she was crazy. Finally, the answer came back. Request approved. Good luck, Marine. Lisa felt a mixture of fear and excitement. Tomorrow she would face an alien warrior in combat that would decide the fate of humanity. She was terrified, but she was also ready. That night she sat by a small fire and worked on her grandfather's stick. She sharpened the points where the wood had been carved. She wrapped the grip with cord to make sure it wouldn't slip. She thought about all the things her grandfather had taught her. Fight smart, not hard, he used to say. Use your head before you use your fists, and never let them think they know what you're going to do next. Amy sat down beside her. Are you really going to do this? Lisa nodded. Someone has to, and I'd rather it be someone who understands what we're fighting for. What are we fighting for? Amy asked. Lisa looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there were alien worlds full of creatures who thought humans were primitive and worthless. But down here was Earth, with its mountains and forests and all the people she cared about. We're fighting for the right to be ourselves, she said. To live, free, and make our own choices. These aliens think technology makes them superior, but they're wrong. What makes us superior is that we never give up. The next morning, Jake returned with news that camera crews and reporters were on their way. The whole world would be watching the fight. Lisa cleaned her gear and checked her weapons one last time. Besides the walking stick, she would carry only her combat knife and her wits. As she prepared to walk into the clearing and face Commander Zethkar, Lisa thought about all the humans throughout history who had faced impossible odds. They hadn't had energy weapons or power armor either. But they had won anyway because they had something the aliens didn't understand. They had heart. The morning sun was just coming up over the Rocky Mountains when Lisa Morgan heard the first strange sound. She stopped walking and held up her hand. The 5 soldiers behind her also stopped and listened. "What was that, Sergeant?" asked Private Jake Collins. He was young and new to the Marines. This was his first training mission in the wilderness. Lisa shook her head. "I don't know. Never heard anything like it before." The sound was like thunder, but it came from above and lasted too long. Thunder didn't work that way. Lisa had grown up in these mountains. Her grandfather owned a ranch not far from here. She knew every sound the forest made: birds singing, wind in the trees, animals moving through the brush. This was different. This was wrong. She looked at her team. Besides Jake, there was Amy Rodriguez, a tough girl from Texas. Then there was Bobby Chen, who was good with maps and directions. Finally, there were the twins, Danny and Pete Wilson from Ohio. They were all good soldiers, but they were used to having radios and computers to help them. Out here, they only had basic gear. That was the point of this training. Lisa wanted them to learn how to survive with just the essentials. Each person carried a backpack with food, water, a sleeping bag, and basic tools. Lisa also carried her grandfather's walking stick. It was made from ironwood and carved with simple patterns. Her grandfather had made it for her when she joined the Marines 3 years ago. "Let's keep moving," Lisa said. "We need to reach the checkpoint by noon." They walked for another hour through the thick forest. The trees were tall and old. Sunlight came through the leaves in bright patches. It should have been peaceful, but Lisa felt something was wrong. The birds had stopped singing. Even the insects were quiet. Then the sky exploded with light. Huge shapes appeared above the trees. They were bigger than any airplane Lisa had ever seen. The metal surfaces were smooth and reflected the morning sun like mirrors. The ships made a deep humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "What the hell is that?" Danny Wilson whispered. Lisa stared up at the ships. There were 3 of them, each one the size of a football stadium. They moved slowly but with purpose, like they knew exactly where they were going. "Everyone get down," Lisa ordered. "Hide behind the trees!" The team scattered and found cover. Lisa pressed herself against a large pine tree and watched the ships pass overhead. She could see details now. There were lights blinking along the sides. Strange symbols were carved into the metal. These weren't human ships. These weren't from Earth at all. One of the ships stopped directly above them. It hovered there, silent and threatening. Then a beam of blue light shot down and hit the ground about a mile away. The light was so bright it hurt to look at. "Sergeant," Amy whispered. "Are those aliens?" Lisa finished. "Yeah, I think so." Jake tried to use his radio. "Base, this is Alpha Team. Do you copy?" He waited, then tried again. "Base, we have a situation out here." Nothing but static. Bobby Chen checked his GPS device. The screen was blank. "Everything's dead," he said. "Radio, GPS, even my watch stopped working." Lisa nodded. The ships were using some kind of signal that messed up electronic equipment. That meant they were cut off from the outside world. No way to call for help or get orders from headquarters. The ship above them started to descend. It was looking for a place to land. Lisa made a quick decision. "We're going to watch and learn," she told her team. "Whatever these things want, we need to understand them first. No shooting unless I give the order. We stay hidden and observe." The ship found a clearing about half a mile away and settled down with a soft thud. The humming sound stopped, and the forest became eerily quiet. Lisa led her team through the trees, moving carefully and quietly. Her grandfather had taught her how to walk in the forest without making noise. Step lightly, avoid dry branches, move slow and steady. The other soldiers followed her lead. They reached a ridge that overlooked the clearing where the ship had landed. From here, they could see everything without being seen. The side of the ship opened like a flower. A ramp extended to the ground, and figures began to walk out. Lisa had wondered what aliens would look like. These were taller than humans, maybe, 7 feet high. Their skin was gray and rough, like elephant hide. They wore armor that looked like it was made of black metal. The armor had lights and symbols that glowed with different colors. But what really caught Lisa's attention were their weapons. Each alien carried something that looked like a gun, but it hummed with energy. When one of them pointed it at a tree and pulled the trigger, the tree simply vanished. No explosion, no fire. The tree was there 1 second and gone the next. "Holy shit," Pete Wilson breathed. The aliens moved with confidence. They acted like they owned the place. One of them, who seemed to be in charge, walked to the center of the clearing. He was bigger than the others, and his armor had more lights and decorations. The leader raised his weapon and fired it into the air. The energy beam shot up like a signal flare. Then he spoke, and somehow his words were translated into English. Lisa didn't understand how, but she could hear his voice clearly. "Humans of this primitive world," the alien said. "I am Commander Zethkar of the Vorthan Empire. We represent the Galactic Federation, and we have come to claim this planet for civilized beings." He gestured to his soldiers, who spread out around the clearing. "Your species is backward and savage. You fight with crude weapons and live in simple shelters. You are not worthy of this world's resources." Zethkar pointed his weapon at another tree and destroyed it. "We offer you a choice. Submit to our authority, and you will be allowed to live as servants. Resist, and you will be eliminated like the primitive creatures you are." Lisa felt anger burning in her chest. These aliens thought humans were weak just because they didn't have fancy technology. They thought Earth belonged to them because they had better weapons. She looked at her team. They were scared, but they were also angry. These were American soldiers, and they didn't like being told they were primitive. "What do we do, Sergeant?" Amy asked quietly. Lisa gripped her grandfather's walking stick tighter. The ironwood felt solid and familiar in her hands. Her grandfather had fought in 3 wars with nothing but his rifle and his wits. He had taught her that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. "We watch," she said. "We learn, and we wait for our chance." Above them, more alien ships were appearing in the sky. But Lisa wasn't afraid anymore. She was planning.